My wife mocked me in front of friends. We should divorce. I calmly replied. Okay, I will prepare the papers. Then she claimed it was just a joke, but I stayed silent and said, but the part about knowing you cheated is true. You know what? I think Daniel and I should get a divorce. My wife, Michelle's words floated over the rooftop crowd like smoke, slow to settle, but impossible to ignore. At first, people laughed because they thought it was what was expected of them. She smiled from ear to ear, clinking her glass with Tracy and Lauren, who burst into high-pitched giggles like backup singers in a rehearsed scene. I did not laugh. I was holding a glass of soda near the bar. The string of a birthday balloon was loosely wrapped around my wrist. I was half listening to a conversation about real estate, and then those words landed like a slap. The rooftop was crowded. The golden lights of Austin spilled over the horizon. The music was low and elegant. Her party, her rules. She turned to me with bright eyes. Don't you think, honey? She added as if my name were an accessory she could toss into the joke. I mean, come on, we barely talk. If it is not about bills or laundry. The laughter faded faster this time. People turned. I moved forward slowly, deliberately, without anger, without confusion, simply with clarity. Okay, I said in a calm voice. Then I will prepare the papers. Everything stopped. Her smile faltered. Tracy's mouth dropped open. A guy from her office almost choked on his drink. Even the Bluetooth speaker seemed to lower its volume. Michelle blinked as if she were adjusting to a sudden light. Oh, come on, Daniel, she said, laughing again, but this time forced. It was a joke. Relax. Was it? I asked. She let out a short huff. Yes. God, you are so. She paused, calculating. So uptight sometimes. Maybe that is part of the problem. And publicly humiliating your husband at your birthday party? Is that your version of fixing things? Now the silence was absolute. You could hear the soft clink of a wine glass being set down. Michelle's face tensed. Do you really want to do this here? You already did, I replied. I'm just matching your energy. I watched her shift, her eyes looking for support, but not even Tracy and Lauren were smiling anymore. Just stiff, awkward postures, not knowing if they were still supposed to laugh. This is typical of you, Michelle snapped, always needing to be the victim. You cannot take a joke. You cannot go with the flow. God forbid someone points out that we have been at a standstill for months. Then why do you stay? I asked. She stared at me, her lips parted. There was no answer. Exactly, I said. You don't want to leave. You just wanted a reaction, an audience. I could feel the weight of the crowd now. All eyes fixed on us, some horrified, others fascinated. I should have cared more, maybe, but at that moment, I did not. I felt clean. I stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough for the edge to cut deep. You are boring, Daniel. Do you think being reliable makes you a man? No, it makes you a substitute. I wanted to feel something tonight, for once. I nodded, my jaw tight. Well, congratulations. You felt it. She did not respond. I turned towards the exit, then stopped. Oh, and don't worry. You will have those papers before the end of the week. And with that, I walked off the rooftop. Her voice chased me. Sullen, now cracking at times. You are a coward. Running away like you always do. I did not turn back. Not this time, because I was not running away, I was beginning. The party did not exactly end. It simply sank under the weight of what had happened. People went back to nursing their drinks and pretending they had not just witnessed a public fracture. But the energy had changed. The rooftop felt colder, tenser. Every laugh was shorter. Every glance was a sidelong check to see how she was doing. I stayed, not because I wanted to, but because I refused to leave like a wounded husband, licking my pride in the parking garage. I stayed by the bar, watching the city lights glitter over the Colorado River, pretending the burning in my chest was just heartburn. That is when I heard Marcus behind me. Are you okay? He was not saying it as a platitude. Marcus knew me too well for that. I turned. He handed me a neat bourbon. I did not ask how he knew I would need it. She really said that, he added in a low voice. In front of everyone. I took a sip. You heard it. He shook his head. I mean, that was cold. Dude, ice cold. You handled it like a Navy SEAL. I laughed a little. Felt more like a drowning man. We stood in silence for a moment. The bass from the speakers pulsing faintly behind us. M was on the other side of the rooftop now, locked in a frantic whisper with Tracy and Lauren, probably doing damage control. Listen, Marcus said after a moment. If you are serious about the papers, I know a guy, a real pro. He does divorces, not the cheesy billboard kind. Fucking brilliant. I looked at him. Marcus never offered things lightly. His tone was not casual. This was support, not a suggestion. You think I should do it? I asked. He did not hesitate. I think if someone I sleep with every night just humiliated me like that, I would be doing more than talking to a lawyer. I turned back to the city. The lights blurred for a second. Outside because of the wind, the whiskey, or the clarity breaking through. I'm not hurt, I said quietly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. I'm not, I repeated. Not in the way she wants me to be. I'm awake, like I just realized I have been standing under fluorescent lights for 6 years, and someone finally turned them off. He studied me, then nodded slowly. Are you saying she has done this before? No, I said. Not like this. But the signs were there. Little things, disrespect in small doses, jokes that were not jokes. This? I gestured behind me towards the echo of laughter that was already trying to erase what she had said, was just the first time she said out loud what she was thinking in silence. Marcus sipped his drink. So what are you going to do? I'm going to teach her something, I said. I hope. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to beg. I'm not even going to argue. Another sip. I'm going to give her exactly what she asked for. Just not in the way she imagined. A smirk played on Marcus's lips. Cold, right? I said, setting down my clean glass. We stood there a moment longer. Then Marcus clapped me on the shoulder. When you are ready, I will put you in touch with that lawyer. I nodded. Tomorrow. His eyebrows shot up. That is soon. I want her to know I meant it. As I walked to the elevator, I did not look at Michelle. I did not need to. The real punishment was not the shouting or the spectacle. It was knowing that for the first time, I was not reacting, I was deciding. The next morning, the kitchen looked exactly the same. The same gray quartz countertops, the same stainless steel espresso machine Michelle never used, the same row of unused cookbooks gathering dust on the floating shelf. But the silence between us, that was new. She was standing by the sink in one of my old t-shirts, one I used to wear when things were good between us. A cotton peace offering. I made no comment. I was pouring coffee into a travel mug when she finally said it. So, last night, she said carefully, as if walking around broken glass. I guess you were just blowing off steam, she continued, her voice lighter now, testing old tones that once worked. Like, I know I crossed a line and it came out wrong, but I thought I have already started the proceedings, I said flatly. She blinked. What? I turned to face her, leaning gently against the counter. You asked for a divorce. I'm giving it to you. She let out a small, awkward laugh. Daniel, come on. I was just being dramatic. You know how I get. Yes, I said. I do know. She did not like my tone. It was not cruel, but it was firm. No argument to debate, no opening to manipulate. She circled the island, trying to meet my gaze. You cannot be serious. I met with a lawyer this morning, I said. Marcus gave me the referral. I signed the engagement letter. They will be sending you the documents by the end of the week. Michelle's mouth opened and closed. The color drained slightly from her face. This is ridiculous, she said finally. You are going to throw away 6 years over a joke. I held her gaze. You did not sound like you were joking. She looked away. I put down the mug, speaking more softly now. But even if you were, it is not about the words, Michelle. It is the comfort you felt in saying them. The way you smiled afterward. The way your friends laughed as if they had heard it before. Her expression twisted. That is not fair. You are overreacting. No, I said. I'm finally reacting appropriately. She crossed her arms. So what? You were just going to end it? Without a fight, without trying to fix it. Was there something to fix? I asked. Because I stood there while you publicly dismantled our marriage for entertainment, and now I'm the one not fighting. The silence between us grew thicker than steam. Her voice softened as if she thought she could still reach me. Daniel, I did not mean it like that. My friends always joke about relationships. It is just our way of talking. You know that. No, I said. I know how you all talk, and I know what you just showed me. She looked at me again, harder this time, testing me, looking for weakness. You are really doing this, she said. It is already done, I replied. What happens next is up to you. For a moment, I saw it. The flash of panic. The realization that the man she thought would never leave had already left emotionally, and all that was left was the paperwork. I did not gloat. I did not raise my voice. I just picked up my keys and my bag. She stood rooted to the spot, and I walked out into the morning sun, bright and quiet, outside. The thing is, sometimes the scariest part of a fight is not the yelling. It is when the other person becomes completely still, because that is when you realize they have stopped fighting for you. That afternoon, I found myself walking along the gravel path along Lady Bird Lake. The skyline stretched soft and distant over the water. No headphones, no phone, just the steady sound of my own footsteps and the occasional rowing boat cutting through the glassy surface in the distance. I had not walked here alone in years. Michelle always found it too humid, too slow. "Why don't we just drive somewhere with air conditioning?" she used to say. Back then I would laugh. I let a lot of things go, but this morning, for the first time in a long time, my thoughts were not racing. They were sharp, focused, clear. Her joke at the party. I kept replaying it, not for the words, but for the ease with which she said them. The performance, the smile that followed, the way she turned me into a punchline as if I were a piece of furniture, part of the decor, not a person. I realized something on that walk. It was not a one-time outburst. It was who she had always been beneath the curated Instagram couple photos and matching Christmas pajamas. She had never respected me. That truth did not burn. It froze. I remembered every time she had cut me off mid-story, every time she had rolled her eyes when I brought up something from work, every time she had retold arguments to her friends with me as the punchline. And I remembered how I had let it happen, not because I was weak, but because I thought love meant patience, endurance, grace under pressure. But what I called grace was actually abandoning myself. A runner passed me, and I stepped aside, watching him disappear around the bend in the path. My own reflection rippled slightly in the lake beside me. This was not about revenge anymore. No, it was really about dignity, about no longer being the man who smiles through someone else's cruelty just to keep the peace. By the time I turned back towards the city, the weight in my chest had shifted. It was still there, but now it had shape, purpose. I headed straight to the law firm Marcus had mentioned. It was in a converted bungalow near Barton Springs, clean and minimalist, with a wide oak desk and quiet jazz humming from some corner. The lawyer's name was Rebecca Kim. Sharp eyes, no wasted words. We sat in her office, and after the brief formalities, she asked bluntly, "Are you sure this is the path you want to take?" I did not hesitate. "Yes. Just so we are clear," she said, "this could burn the last threads of goodwill you have left. Sometimes people want justice, but what they need is distance." I looked her straight in the eye. "There is no goodwill left to burn." She already lit the match. Rebecca nodded. "No lectures, no pity." She slid the intake form towards me with her firm voice. "Then let us get to work." Exactly 1 week after the rooftop party, I came home from work like any other Thursday. Except this time I was carrying a manila envelope under my arm and the quietest of finalities settled in my chest. M was curled up on the living room sofa, scrolling through her phone with a glass of white wine on the coffee table beside her. The television was playing something mindless in the background, some dating show where everyone talked like they were auditioning for attention. She did not look up when I walked in. No. At first, I just stood there for a moment, watching her. The way she casually browsed her phone with her legs stretched out as if everything were normal, as if we had not opened a fundamental rift just 7 days ago. Then I moved forward and placed the envelope on the coffee table, right next to her wine. Her eyes flicked to it, then to me. "What is that?" she asked, her brow already furrowing. "The divorce papers," I said calmly. "It is all in there. The split is fair. 50-50. She stared at the envelope as if it might catch fire. "Wait, what? Is this what you wanted?" "No," I said, my voice quiet. "You said it in front of 30 people. I thought I would save you the trouble." The silence that followed was thick with disbelief. She sat up straight, her phone forgotten on the cushion beside her. "I did not mean it like that," she stammered. "It was a joke. Everyone knew I was just trying to be funny." "You were laughing," I replied. "They were not." Her hands moved to her lap, restless. She opened her mouth and closed it again. "I was drinking. Tracy and Lauren were egging me on. I was just trying to, I don't know, lighten the mood." I nodded. "You succeeded. Everyone left the party with something to talk about." She flinched at that. "Daniel," she said, her voice dropping, almost pleading now. "This is insane. You cannot be serious." I said. "I have never been clearer." Her expression shifted quickly, panic giving way to anger. So you are just going to throw everything away over one stupid night? No, I said, leaning on the arm of the chair. I'm ending something that was already over. That night just made it public. She stood up, her wine glass clinking as it hit the table. You think you are so above it all, don't you? Quiet, serene Daniel playing the victim while I'm painted as the monster. I'm not painting anything, I said. I'm just done pretending this still works. The mask cracked again. She shook her head, pacing now, her eyes wide. This is insane, she said again. Do you really think you are going to walk away from this clean? Do you think people are going to take your side? I gave a soft shrug. I'm not asking them to. She stopped, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. And what? You are going to be the bigger man. Just disappear into the sunset like some quiet, enlightened ex-husband. I'm going to be someone who finally respected himself enough to leave. That shut her up. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. I could see her processing the panic, the disbelief, the slow realization that I was not bluffing, that I was not trying to blame or punish her, or even win. I was just done. She looked at the envelope again as if it were a bomb she had not expected to explode. This does not feel real, she whispered. We used to love each other. I still believe that, I said quietly. But love is not supposed to humiliate you. Michelle sat back down slowly, her hands shaking a little as she reached for the envelope. She did not open it. I did not expect her to. I will not chase you, she said after a long pause. I nodded. I know. And with that, I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stood by the window as the sun set over Austin. Behind me, the only sound was the soft rustle of paper. She was finally opening the envelope, but my heart was not in that room anymore. It had not been for a long time. They called mid-morning. I was sitting on the front porch with a cup of black coffee. The kind of quiet morning that made me feel like the world had finally slowed down enough to breathe again. The breeze carried a whisper of cedar and sunscreen, and for once, the silence felt earned. When I opened the door, it was Tracy and Lauren. Of course it was. Both standing there in matching athleisure, oversized sunglasses, and smiles too wide to be real. The kind of smiles that come with built-in damage control. Hey, Tracy said, drawing the word out like a sitcom character. Mind if we chat for a second? Lauren chimed in. We were in the neighborhood and thought maybe we should clear the air. I stepped aside, but did not invite them in. Instead, I went back to the porch and sat down, gesturing towards the railing as if they could stand there if they wanted. They hesitated, then followed. Tracy leaned against the post. So, look, about Michelle's party. Things got a little out of hand. A little, I asked, raising an eyebrow. Lauren let out a nervous laugh. I mean, it was supposed to be funny, just some wild humor. Michelle's way of, exaggerating things. You know how she is. Sure, I said, sipping my coffee. I know exactly how she is. That threw them for a moment. Then Tracy pushed on. We are not here to defend what she said. It was not ideal, but honestly, we were all drinking and it kind of got away from us. She did not mean it literally. She said it twice, I said calmly. Once as a joke, and again when she thought the laughter made it safe. Tracy shifted uncomfortably. We just don't want you to think that was the whole picture. You and Michelle. Michelle and I interrupted, are done. The whole picture has been revealed. I'm just adjusting the frame. Lauren stepped forward, trying to soften the tone. Look, Daniel. Michelle has been a mess. She feels like you blindsided her with the divorce papers. Maybe there is still a way to walk this back. Walk back from what? I asked. The part where she mocked our marriage in front of everyone, or the part where I finally had the self-respect to believe her. They both stood still, their smiles frozen. Tracy finally dropped hers completely. Seriously, you are going through with this? I looked at her, then at Lauren, and said, here is what I understand now. The three of you make a great group for parties, gossip, and petty drama, but for marriage, for respect, not so much. Lauren's expression cracked. Excuse me. I shrugged. No offense. I just finally see why the three of you are still single. It landed harder than I thought. Lauren's lips tightened. Tracy's eyes narrowed. Wow, she muttered. I guess we were wrong to think you were the good guy. I'm not being mean, I said. I'm being honest. You should try it sometime. They turned, without another word, their heels clicking on the porch steps. As the screen door creaked shut behind me, I leaned back in my chair, brought the coffee to my lips, and let the silence wash over me again. That silence used to feel like a threat. Now it felt like peace. It started small. A vague Instagram story from Lauren, pink background, glittery font, and the words, "Some men just cannot handle strong women." Crying laughing face, blessed. Nothing tagged, nothing direct, but clear enough for anyone who had been at that rooftop party. Then Tracy followed up with a meme of a crying emoji and a caption. "Imagine filing for divorce over a joke, nail polish emoji." Michelle did not post anything right away, but a few days later, she uploaded a picture of herself at brunch. Mimosas, glossy lips. The caption read, "Feeling free feels good. Some things are better left behind." For a moment, I felt the heat rise in my chest, that old impulse to respond, to defend myself, to correct the record, but I did not. I just watched. And then a strange thing happened. The comments started to roll in, and they were not on her side. "Wait, is this about your husband? Did not you just mock him at your own birthday party, girl? Maybe you should sit this one out. Wow, not a good look. He seemed like a good guy." And under Michelle's post, "You publicly humiliate someone and then act like you are the empowered one. No thanks." He had a lucky escape. From there, the snowball grew. Screenshots started circulating from people who had been at the party. Someone uploaded a blurry video of the moment she made the divorce comment. You could hear my voice clearly. "Okay, then I will prepare the papers." Apparently, people liked that line. Someone even turned it into a TikTok sound. I posted nothing. I did not like the comments or correct the narratives. I just watched the tide turn on its own. Michelle's friends tried to fight back. Tracy posted a long story calling people keyboard cowards, while Lauren tried to pivot to victimhood, claiming they were being bullied for having personalities. But it was too late. The internet had decided, and this time, they were not on Michelle's side. That should have felt like justice. But the attention did not stop there. Mutual friends began messaging me privately, some with condolences, others asking questions, some just curious about the drama. One even called me late one night and said, "Dude, are you seeing this? You are basically a local legend now." I did not want that. I did not want to be a meme, or a story, or a talking point in someone else's group chat. I just wanted to move on. But the thing about public fallout is that you don't get to choose where the pieces land. Michelle's circle began to shrink rapidly. People unfollowed her. One of her coworkers even reposted the video with the caption, "This is why I keep my relationships off social media." Suddenly, it was not just about us anymore. It was a spotlight neither of us had asked for. And as I remained silent, no quotes, no interviews, no witty comebacks, I realized something deeper than vindication. Michelle had not just lost control over me. She had lost control of the narrative. And for someone like her, that was the sharpest cut of all. The invitation came as a text message. Short, direct, no frills. "Private event Friday night. You are on the list. Would love to see you. Sienna." I had not spoken to Sienna in over a year. She and Michelle used to be close until too many passive-aggressive group chats finally drove her away. Michelle always said Sienna was jealous or dramatic or one brunch away from burning her whole life down, but I remembered Sienna as sharp, centered, honest in ways Michelle hated. So I went. On Friday night, the city was buzzing. The heat clung to the buildings, that late summer humidity that makes you feel like you are walking into something. The venue was sleek, one of those rooftop lounges that made you feel cooler just by walking in the door. Black marble bar, soft jazz remixed into down-tempo beats, everyone dressed like they had something to prove, but somehow I did not feel out of place. Not tonight. When I stepped onto the rooftop, Sienna saw me from across the room. She smiled, a real smile. Not a tight-lipped, status-checking greeting, just warmth. "Daniel," she said, hugging me lightly. "I'm glad you came. I was not sure I would be welcome. Are you kidding? After this week, you are the most respected man in this zip code." I let out a small laugh. It is ironic. She led me into a circle of people I half recognized from local panels, startups, nonprofits. They were all kind, curious. No one mentioned Michelle, at least not directly. One man leaned in and said, "You handled that situation with real class." Most guys would have lost their temper. Another woman added, "It is rare to see someone walk away with that kind of dignity." I did not know what to say, so I nodded, smiled, let the praise wash over me like the wind. About an hour later, I stepped away from the group, carrying a glass of something citrusy to the far end of the balcony. That is when I saw them. Michelle, Tracy, Lauren, standing just outside the velvet rope at the ground floor entrance. They were not on the list. I watched as Michelle argued with the host, waving her phone as if to prove something. Her dress was stunning, probably expensive, probably chosen to send a message, but it did not matter. The host remained calm, shook his head, and finally turned away. Michelle stood there for a moment, her arms crossed, visibly furious. Tracy checked her reflection in a window, trying to act casual. Lauren was already pulling out her phone, probably crafting a post about cancel culture or some nonsense. From my elevated position, I felt nothing. Not triumph, not spite, just confirmation. This was the other side of the rope, and I did not need to say a word. Back inside, the evening continued. I talked to a woman who ran a creative fund. I traded design ideas with a young architect. I laughed more than I had in months. No one asked me to explain myself. No one treated me like a cautionary tale. I was not the guy whose wife turned him into a meme. I was just Daniel. And for the first time in a long time, that seemed like enough. I should have left earlier. The party was winding down. The rooftop, lit in soft amber tones, and the warm hum of conversation surrounded me. I had one last drink in my hand, a sparkling cider someone insisted I try, and I was mid-laugh with a couple from Dallas when I saw them. Michelle, Tracy, Lauren. This time they were inside. Somehow they had managed to get past the host, probably by using their connections or guilt-tripping some rookie employee at the elevator. Either way, there they were, thunderclouds and designer heels, scanning the crowd like sharks in silk. I watched them from across the room. Michelle's expression locked onto me the moment she saw me. Something between outrage and desperation. Her friends flanked her like emotional bodyguards, their fake smiles trembling beneath the surface. I turned back to the couple I was talking to, but the mood had shifted. I could feel the tension like static in my bones. Then the voice came. "Wow," Michelle shouted, loud enough to cut through the music around us. "I guess this is where you come to hide now." People turned. I did not respond, just sipped my drink. She closed the distance quickly, Tracy and Lauren following her like loyal chaos. "You ignore my texts. You serve me divorce papers, and then you show up here like nothing happened," she hissed, her voice high but cracking. Sienna appeared by my side, calm and composed. "You were not invited." "I'm not here for you," Michelle snapped. "I'm here for answers." "Maybe this is not the place," I said calmly. "You already chose the stage once." It did not end well. Michelle's eyes flashed. "You made me look like a monster." "No," I said. "You did that all by yourself." "And that is when it started." Tracy chimed in. "You know what is pathetic? Acting like you are some kind of saint. You were just too boring to keep her attention." "That is the truth." Lauren, behind her, added. "Seriously, Daniel, you act all dignified now, but you were not perfect. You never saw how unhappy she was." Michelle did not stop them, just let it happen. So I turned to leave. That is when Lauren shouted it. "Why don't you just admit it, Michelle? You cheated on him. That is why you said it at the party. You were trying to get ahead of it." Silence. The kind of silence that steals the air from your lungs. Michelle spun around. "Lauren, shut up." But it was too late. Sienna's face hardened. The people nearby stopped pretending not to listen. "Wait, what?" someone whispered. I turned back, slow and steady. "Did you cheat on me?" I asked Michelle, my voice low. Her mouth opened, and then closed. Her eyes darted between Lauren and me, furious and afraid. "I did not," she started, but the words got stuck. It was not. We were in a bad place. I took a slow breath, letting the air settle in my lungs. "Was that before or after you turned our marriage into a comedy routine?" Michelle stepped towards me. "Daniel, please. I did not mean for it to go this far." "Which part?" I asked. "The affair, or the part where you tried to humiliate me before I could find out?" Tracy crossed her arms, but said nothing. Lauren suddenly looked like she wanted to disappear through the floor. The music was still playing, but the room had frozen. Michelle's voice broke. I did not know how to fix it. Everything felt numb. "You wanted to leave," I said. "So you lit a fire hoping I would run." I took a step back, setting the empty glass on a nearby table. "This is the part you never understood, Michelle," I said, my voice calm, but final. "You did not need to break me to leave. But now, you are not just going to walk away clean." I turned and walked to the elevator, not looking back once. Behind me, the argument started again. Tracy yelling at Lauren, Michelle trying to contain it all. the blame bouncing between them as if it could undo the truth. But none of that mattered anymore. Because when someone shows you how little they respect you, the worst thing you can do is stick around long enough to prove them right. The courtroom was not dramatic. No shouting, no last-minute confessions, no gavel-banging like in the movies. It was just quiet, civilized, predictable. Michelle sat 2 chairs away, her lawyer occasionally whispering to her, her eyes refusing to meet mine. She was wearing a discreet navy blue dress and a face I barely recognized. Tired, smaller somehow. The fire she once brought into every room was now a flicker behind glass. She signed the final documents with a trembling hand. I signed mine with a steady one. 50-50. Just as I said, fair. That word mattered more to me than I expected. Not revenge, not punishment, just balance. After all of it, that felt like enough. Outside the courthouse, Marcus was waiting with 2 coffees. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah." We walked in silence for a while, sipping. The city buzzed around us, unaware that something had just ended in that quiet building behind me. But not everyone was unaware. Over the next few days, the messages trickled in. Some from my friends, others from people I barely knew. Acquaintances, co-workers, even one of Michelle's former bridesmaids. "You handled that like a king. We all saw what she did. You did not deserve that. You were the only adult in the room." Praise is a strange thing. At first it felt hollow, then slowly it became warm. Not because I needed to be told I was right, but because I needed to know I had not imagined the grievance. Meanwhile, Michelle's world was shrinking daily. Tracy and Lauren stopped tagging her in anything. Mutual friends quietly removed her from group chats. People who once flocked to her parties started ignoring her events. She tried posting a few things, cryptic quotes, pretty selfies, a new beginning caption or two, but the engagement was never what it used to be. The algorithm knew what the people knew. The story had shifted. She was not the star anymore. I ran into her once, weeks later, in a grocery store parking lot. She was getting into her car alone, no makeup, her hair pulled back. She looked up as I walked by. I nodded. She did not. And that was it. No confrontation, no round 2, just silence. That night, I came home to the same couch, where she had once laughed with her friends, where she had once dismissed me with practiced sarcasm. The cushions still held their shape, but the energy was different. It was mine now. I sat with a glass of water, no television, no noise, no phone scrolling, just the quiet hum of peace settling in. People always expect the end of something to be loud, explosive, cinematic, but the real endings come in silence, when there is nothing left to fight for. When the silence finally feels like home. I did not pack much, just a duffel bag, a cooler with water and some sandwiches, and a playlist I had not touched since the early days of our marriage, when road trips meant possibility instead of escape. I did not tell anyone where I was going. I just got in the car on a Friday morning and drove southwest, past the Austin sprawl, past the hills and towns that blurred like half-formed memories. The kind of trip where the horizon pulls you farther than any destination ever could. By sunset, I was halfway across New Mexico. The sky stretched wide, so wide it made every problem I ever had seem ridiculously small. And under that sky, for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged to myself again. No noise, no posts, no carefully curated life to manage. Just me in the quiet. The funny thing about silence is that it used to scare me. I used to think if things got too quiet, I would have to face the truth of who I was. But now I knew that silence was not the absence of love. It was the aftermath of chaos that finally gave you room to breathe. I stayed in small towns. I ate alone in diners with cracked leather booths. I watched strangers laugh over pancakes and remembered what real joy sounded like. No angles, no games, just people being people. And somewhere along Highway 191, just outside of Clifton, I pulled over at a scenic overlook. It was just rocks and sky, but it felt like a cathedral. I stood there for a long time, letting the wind press against my chest, with my eyes closed. I thought about Michelle, not with anger, not with bitterness, just with a strange, distant acceptance. She did not destroy me, she revealed me. Her betrayal carved away the last of who I was not, so I could finally become who I needed to be. Not bitter, not broken, just done. And that was enough. I thought about the man who stood silently at the rooftop party while people laughed at his life. Then I thought about the man standing here with dust on his boots and peace in his bones. Same guy, a completely different story. I got back in the car and kept driving. No map, no schedule, just forward. People always ask what justice looks like in situations like mine. Some imagine courtroom speeches, public apologies, or a perfect karma that lands like a cinematic twist. But real justice is not loud. It is not posted. It is not something you throw in anyone's face. Real justice is walking away so quietly, so completely, that they finally hear the echo of their own decisions. It is not revenge, it is resolution. It is living well, not to prove a point, but because you finally stopped carrying weights that were not yours. Somewhere outside of Bisbee it rained again, just as the sun was sinking behind the desert ridge, and I laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because I was free.